conflicts for the United States are not going well. You have Ukraine on the brink of defeat. You have NATO on the brink of defeat. You have Israel absolutely languishing now that it has committed untold horrors, and the United States cannot save it. I wanted to ask you, Brian, we now know that Donald Trump is choosing people like Marco Rubio potentially for Secretary of State. We actually just got reports that there is now a new Secretary of Defense in the United States. Let me just see if I can actually find who this is. He is a Fox News host who is, let's just say, an Iran and China hawk. He has been filling out his cabinet, national security advisors, China hawks, Mike Waltz, for example. Talk about your impression of these picks, because there was a lot of enthusiasm, I think, for people who follow geopolitics around our audiences and around the election of Donald Trump. But Pete Hegseth is now the Secretary of Defense. He is an Iran hawk. He calls it an evil regime. He is a China hawk. Anyone that is being picked by Donald Trump right now seems to fit this pattern. What's your impression?
Yeah, literally every single person he has picked so far has, maybe with the exception of Elon Musk, maybe I'll get into that in just a bit. And his position is, I mean, I don't even know what this position that was created for him. And you know what Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., you know what they are. They are the sugar coating of this giant lump of arsenic that they're asking the American people to choke down. That's all they are, because literally everyone else who has orbited Trump during his campaign and now getting positions in his administration, these are all neocon war hawks. You remember Donald Trump Jr., no neocons or war hawks. We went from no neocons and war hawks to all neocons and war hawks. And forgive me for not being surprised, but this is literally what he did during his first administration. I tried to warn people then, because I actually looked at the people who surrounded him. I understand where real power stems from. It stems from money and guns. And in the United States, there is no alternative center of power with enough money and guns to make any meaningful change in American politics. It's a fact. It cannot happen. You cannot create something out of nothing. And even though the American people want this, they don't have the means to actually do it. And because Americans, like all human beings, including myself, we're capable of logic and reason, but ultimately we're emotional creatures. So people are going to invest their hope in Trump because Trump promised them this. He promised them an anti-war campaign to divest from American imperialism abroad and invest in America. That is sound. That is something I would love to see. That is something I wish I could believe in and see unfold, but it just was never going to. He was just telling you what you want to hear so that he could get the support of war-weary Americans. And then once he's in office, he's going to go and do whatever he feels like, just like he did the first time. He is a politician, and he's doing exactly what politicians always do, almost without exception. I don't know why people thought he was the exception, especially since he already spent 4 years betraying his campaign promises and the core of his movement and the people he has surrounded himself with. The new U.S. ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik, board of directors of the National Endowment for Democracy, this regime change organization that spreads democracy all around the globe. A lot of the cultural war nonsense that right-wing conservatives detest, this is what the NED is promoting all around the world. And Stefanik plays a key role as a member of the board of directors in doing that all around the globe. You have John Radcliffe, CIA director. Every single malicious fabricated lie about China, he will repeat it. So will Mike Waltz, who I think it is confirmed that he will now be the national security advisor. People were saying Trump didn't pick Bolton, he didn't pick Pompeo, he didn't pick Haley. Instead, he picked their ideological clones, which are these people. Mike Waltz is the idea. Tell me, how is he different than John Bolton? How is Marco Rubio different than Mike Pompeo? How is Elise Stefanik different than Nikki Haley, except in name? I mean, some of them actually almost look identical in appearance. So there is no change coming. They need to kick the can down the road. They need to create doubts and hesitation in the minds of Americans so that they don't try to actually change anything in the U.S. And they'll go ahead and they'll advance this agenda. I heard people talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. This guy is an anti-war. He's an anti-China war hawk. I'm sorry, anti-China war hawk. I'm just looking down the list. It's unbelievable. And the problem is, going back to humans being emotional creatures, they would rather become liars themselves than admit that they have been lied to. So as I'm debating with people about this who try to make excuses, I see them adopting lies that I know they oppose, but they don't want to admit that they've been tricked. They don't want to admit that this hope was an illusion. They rather be shaped into bad people than admit people they thought were good have actually turned out to be very bad. So you will see Trump supporters who picked Trump specifically because he said he would stop wars abroad, repeating lies about China, about Iran, because they don't want to admit that Trump has instantly, at light speed at least, betrayed his campaign promises.
You're not going to get in the duopoly, in the two-party system, which is absolutely controlled by wealth, by capital, by money, by the rich, and by, of course, the military interests and the warmongers that do their bidding. You're not going to get change out of that. And what's so interesting, Brian, I don't know if you caught the enthusiasm that was so apparent on social media after Donald Trump publicly announced he was not going to invite Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo back into his administration. There was almost a kind of gleeful celebration that was going on among those who were following this. But of course, this was very premature, because it almost seems like now that move was just a way to soften the blow of choosing someone possibly like Marco Rubio, who some people have tried to quibble with me. Oh, Marco Rubio versus Mike Pompeo. Oh, who's worse? Maybe Mike Pompeo is a little worse. I'm just like, do you know Marco Rubio? Marco Rubio he is being groomed by the Adelsons, who are the big money donor to Donald Trump, around getting him to be very friendly to Israel. That has been the case for the past two political administrations for Donald Trump. Marco Rubio is being groomed by them to be president, but this guy is connected to everything, whether it is through trying to support and literally supporting every single coup attempt in Latin America, to wanting war with Iran, to, of course, also being a fanatic China hawk. All of these choices so far are fanatics when it comes to China. They are China hawks through and through. Even the Western media calls them China hawks, because that's just what they are, and that's what you can expect. You can expect now. I don't even know if it's going to be a reprioritization, Brian. I don't know, because the Ukraine conflict cannot be left, right? Like, you can't just do nothing about it. You have to do something about it. And it's unclear whether Russia is going to say, well, all right, if you want to ignore this, then we're just going to hold back. No, that politically, it doesn't seem possible for NATO and the United States to necessarily just ignore it. They're going to have to make decisions about it, which means that they're going to have to be involved if these China hawks and these Iran hawks in Trump's upcoming cabinet are going to get their way. They're going to have to do all three fronts. And I think these cabinet picks, Brian, reflect that a reality that, in fact, America first is not America. Let's build it up. Let's make it great. Let's have top-notch infrastructure like China. Let's eliminate poverty. Let's improve people's standard of living. No, actually, it's about having America sit atop the global throne. And what usually happens when the United States pursues that is it's sitting on top of graves, of mass graves, of skeletons, of skulls and bones of those that perish because of it.
Yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, what Trump has done since winning the election was not really a bait and switch. If people objectively listened to what he was saying, his vice president pick, J.D. Vance, has repeatedly said, we need to get out of Ukraine because we need the weapons to go to war with China. He's repeatedly said this. And it wasn't because he was opposed to the war in Ukraine. He just realizes that it's not possible to fight both of these wars at the same time. And that is not an improvement. That is just a reprioritization of an unjust, irrational, unsustainable, indefensible foreign policy.